And Nix will just clock it. Now, he dribbled the snap, picked it up, and then spiked it.
Ellinger winds up, picked up, and that's your ball game.
It seemed like everything we did, though, they had an answer for. I don't know if they had our signals or what.
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Review. It's the OSG Sports College Football Weekend Review podcast, where we take a look at all the action that was over the course of the week and news, notes, nuggets, and things left unsaid. We are the online sports guys, the OSG sports team, if you will. Joining us this week, as always, OSG Nelson, OSG J-Dub, Jay Wilkerson, 16, John Wilkerson, and son Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Say hi.
What
up? What's up?
What up?
What up?
Okay. Remotely from the resort town of Hilton Head, South Carolina, guys.
At the Disney Resort, yes.
Very nice.
Did you catch college football this weekend? It was some strange things going on.
Why don't you just go ahead and wind Wilkie up? Let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way.
Yeah, let's see how wound up Wilkie gets when we talk about probably the most controversial finish of the week, where the Arkansas Razorbacks had Auburn on the ropes in Auburn, only to have a really, really crazy play at the end of the game completely whiffed on by the referees.
And Nix will just clock it. Now, he dribbled the snap, picked it up, and then spiked it. It was a late whistle, but now a flag comes in.
Pig, nope.
Yeah, Michael, was that a backwards pass or was it a forward pass by Bo Nix?
It was a backwards pass, in my opinion.
And what happened?
I mean, the refs just missed that call. What can I say?
All right, well, read this from the SEC. This is the SEC explanation.
You mean read it aloud? Or...
Yeah, read it out loud.
This is radio, Michael.
3 seconds in the fourth quarter. The official
Talk loudly.
Talk loud.
During the third down play at 30 seconds in the fourth quarter, the officials on the field sounded their whistles and blew the play dead as they deemed the passer illegally grounded the ball to conserve time, as governed by Rule 732F.
What is 732F? Nobody knows what 732F
I was going to say,
is.
Michael's sitting there trying to find 732F, and he can't find it either.
On that tiny screen, yeah.
I think we know what F stands for. So, as a 17-year-old senior in high school, huge college football fan, and by the way, he's a huge Arkansas fan, so I raised him right.
So he's seen lots of futility over the last few years.
Yes, he has, but here we are, a respectable program, and what happens?
I mean, we get robbed.
That's your analysis.
Yeah. We should have won that game.
There you go.
The refs knew what they were doing.
There you go. How do you argue with that logic from a 17-year-old? J-Dub, you're an educator. You're probably very proud and smiling of Michael right now.
All I know is he said more words than my teenagers do, so I'm very proud of Michael right now.
All right, you want to go back to the Jags and Texans? All right, man.
What is it outside of the blown call? What's one of the takeaways you get from this game? Because it's not something you expect to see out of an SEC game here over the last few years. Auburn's been pretty good, and Arkansas hasn't.
Well,
right, Wilkie, take the Arkansas point of view, and I'll let you know what's going on at Auburn.
Obviously, Arkansas's defense is improved. Now, they had a lot of problems with open field tackling, and I credit Auburn's offense. I thought they scouted Arkansas's defense very well.
It seemed like every time we called something, they had the best play that they could have against it. And, and they had a really good plan. You know, Lane is a really good coach. They got a good offensive team. They got some good players on offense. And we didn't do a very good job of executing what we need to do on defense.
Well, it's the worst performance I've ever seen of a Nick Saban defense.
Yeah.
Well, in the Nick Saban era, but Ole Miss's defense is atrociously bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it is it is to the level of god awful, in my opinion. But
GAWD.
yeah, that's how we say it down here.
God awful.
But hey, I think to me, this kind of proves what an outstanding game caller Lane Kiffin is, because
Absolutely.
he had Alabama gashed a few times
And on their heels the whole time.
On their heels, and press the right buttons every time. I love the fourth down calls. I mean, they were spot on every time. And so that offense, Matt Castle, to me, impressed the heck out of me, because he read that Alabama defense perfectly. And
Matt Corral, 2 touchdowns.
Matt Corral,
21 for 28, 365. A huge game. Snoop Connor, 21 carries for 128 yards for Ole Miss, too, in the loss.
But then you look at Najee Harris with 5 touchdowns and over 200 yards. Right?
I was going to bring out Najee Harris, because you kind of felt when he got his first carry of the game, yeah, he's up for a big game, and he was.
And Alabama couldn't stop Kenny Yeboah either. I mean, he had like 100,000 yards receiving and 2-3 touchdowns. I mean,
Alabama's defense didn't know what was up or down.
I was really surprised.
And DJ Durkins doesn't, so it's consistent.
I was surprised to see Ole Miss put up those kind of points against Alabama, which makes me feel good as a fan of an SEC team, that maybe there's a hope that Alabama will take 2 or 3 losses this year. Who knows?
Yeah, we may find out what they're all about next week when they square off in the game of the century this month against the University of Georgia, which we'll talk about later in the show.
We don't have to. That's okay if we don't. We can move on.
One of the other crazy SEC games this week was an upset in College Station as Texas A&M Aggies pull off the win over the previously number 4 ranked Florida Gators. And the question I have about this one, and I'll throw it out to the floor, was Florida really the 4th best team in the country going into this game? And how big of an upset was it really?
Offensively, I'd say yes. Defensively, I don't think they're top 5.
Wilkie?
Yeah, I'll agree with you, J-Dub. They're not a top 5 defensive team, but they played some they faced some teams before that are kind of offensively challenged. Even Ole Miss at that time was kind of figuring out the system when they opened up against Ole Miss. But Kellen Mond kind of proved that, at least in one game, he's as good as anybody at quarterback in college football. But it seems like it's one game cycles, and he goes into a funk again, and which, by the way, seems to be a pattern with Jimbo Fisher type quarterbacks, unless you're Jameis Winston. But this is a win Texas A&M needed. There was a lot of doubt about the Aggies and whether the Jimbo Fisher era is really worth it. And at least they settled that for 1 week.
I can't comment on either the Quitter or the University of South Georgia Gainesville campus effectively. So since I had negative comments on both, I'm just going to yield the rest of my time to the floor.
I did think it was funny, though. Did you hear Dan Mullen's post-game comment about how he blamed the fan base at Bryan College Station there at Kyle Field for the loss, and now he's calling for fans to come out to Gainesville in force next week? He said the fan base was why we lost that game. I'm like, really? Your players didn't have anything to do with that?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have had anything to do with A&M outgaining Florida 543 to 400, or the 34 minutes of possession that Texas A&M had in the game, could it?
No, but I don't discount what Dan Mullen said, because momentum is huge in college football, and they did have a rather rowdy fan presence in College Station, and I try saying that fast 3 times. So I don't discount what Dan Mullen said. I mean, that is one thing we're missing in college football. We're getting the 25% crowds, or maybe a little more, depending on how many people you're counting. However, that is a big part of college football, is having that momentum generated by your home fans. Obviously, A&M, and I don't know if any of you guys, I think, John, you've been to Kyle Field. John Nelson, you've been to Kyle Field. I've been there too. It is a massive structure, and the noise just comes down on you. And I don't, similar to what the Swamp is. So I don't discount what Dan Mullen said. I think that is kind of a big deal when you're on the road like that, and they've kind of fudged the numbers as far as who they're letting them in.
Announced attendance 24,709 for the game, which is roughly 24% of Kyle Field's 102,733 seat capacity.
I will have to say the midnight yell is one of the best traditions I've ever witnessed.
It's one of the weirdest things ever. They're all weird. The band is amazing. The fans are weird. Pick up the phone.
Hey, I almost got bitten by Reveille one time.
Oh, that's awesome.
As for Mullen's request for a packed-out Swamp next week, the University of Florida administration has already said, no, that's not happening, even though it is technically allowed by the letter of the law in the state of Florida. The university said, I don't think so. Nice try.
Don't be surprised if some injunction is filed by some rowdy fan.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's going to be 90,000 at the Swamp no matter what happens.
I think you might have an issue there if it does, but that's not for me to say one way or the other, so we'll stay out of politics there. I think it would be, highly surprising. Couple other, I'm losing my voice already.
A couple of other games. All right, a couple of other SEC games.
Other games. The one that caught my eye, and again, I don't know how much of an upset it is because apparently LSU's defense is quite bad. Missouri downs LSU in Baton Rouge.
No, it was they moved it to Foro Field because of Delta.
That's right. They moved it to
moved it to Columbia because of Delta. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But Mizzou beats LSU 45-41 behind a true freshman quarterback who threw the ball 34 times, completing 29 passes for 406 yards and 4 touchdowns.
And keep in mind, Tennessee beat the crap out of Mizzou last week. Just saying.
Well, you're going transitive property on everything. I get it.
It's almost as if LSU's defense would Ole Miss against Mizzou, because it was an awful performance and it really kind of undercut really a great performance by Miles Brennan at quarterback. I mean, he kind of made a name for he would have made a name for himself if they could have gotten the win at Furrow Field, but it didn't happen. But I thought he had an outstanding performance, but that defense at LSU is atrocious.
Yes.
And this is the second game where they've just looked awful. I guess you give him a pass for Vanderbilt, but it's Vanderbilt.
Yes.
And here's my issue with that, because we all recognize what a great defensive coordinator Dave Aranda was. And I know they lost some talent, but I'm not sure.
Pelini's not it.
Well, let me go a little further. I'm wondering what that facility is like right now with Bo Pelini. He's not the most people-friendly coach there is.
No.
And
putting it mildly.
And I'm just wondering what the relationship is between him and Coach O right now, and is Pelini resisting this, because he's as stubborn as they are, and we saw that against Mississippi State in the opener. And are his players bought in to Bo Pelini and what he's selling?
Is this one and done, Wilkie?
He might be done by next week.
He's given up like
they have Florida coming up.
He's given up like 1,200 yards in the 2 losses. That's insane. But you have to look at, I watched Connor Bazelak last week against Tennessee. Kid has got skills.
Yeah, he does.
And, he came into this game against LSU fearless. 406 yards and 4 touchdowns. He only missed 5 passes. So it's an amazing performance. And then you have to look at Larry Roundtree. Larry Roundtree is a legitimate running back.
And Tennessee did a good job boxing him up. LSU couldn't.
Nope. So LSU has got problems, and I think that problem is a target square on the back of Bo Pelini right now.
Can we talk about Mississippi State for a second?
Oh, the Mississippi State and their 2-point effort.
Was it 65 passes, 275 yards, 2 points?
Yep.
Yeah, the offense is tanked. And what did Kentucky do? Rush 3, drop 8.
Yeah. How long did it take for the SEC to figure out Mike Leach's offense?
3 weeks.
And KJ Costello with the 4 picks. Oh yeah, they're playing the air raid well right now.
Well,
Yeah.
just think if Bo Pelini made adjustments in that LSU game. I mean, a good defensive coordinator probably would have done that halftime of game 1.
Yep.
Yeah, and as we just talked about, it appears that it was more about LSU's offense or defense than it was Mississippi State's offense in week 1. LSU's in trouble, guys. They are LSU's in trouble. Of course they're in trouble. Mississippi State's got some problems. Mike Leach, after the game, saying he might need to be cleaning house of some quote-unquote malcontents in the program already.
I think we're going to have to kind of check some of our group and figure out who really wants to play here, because any malcontents, we're going to have to purge a couple of those.
Well, I mean, you go from being national darlings to losing to Arkansas, which
dumpling,
which we all know what they were when they went into the game, having the long SEC losing streak and being the one that snapped that, and now a dismal performance against Kentucky, and a Kentucky team that's figured them out. And of course, Mike Stoops made his bones being a defensive coach. So, I'm looking at Mississippi State right now. Their schedule: Texas A&M's next. They're hot, and then you looks like you get a week off, and then you go to Alabama. So, do you say you're staring 1-4 pretty good right now? 1-5?
I think you're staring 1-4 pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption here at this point in time.
Would you say the bloom has come off the rose?
I would say that the rose has come off the bloom. Yes.
That's it.
I'm not sure I'm not sure it was ever there.
Oh, it was there, but it lasted for a week.
I think it was a mirage, but I could be wrong. Moving on to the Big 12, the game of the week in the Big 12, easily OU and Texas, the Red River Shootout. Oklahoma wins in 4 overtimes, 53-45.
Okay, now I'll just say this ahead of the real in-depth analysis. If you have a way to watch the fourth quarter and overtime with Gus and Joel Klatt calling the fourth quarter and the overtime period, watch it. I mean, literally go to your regional sports net or go to your Fox Sports Go or whatever.
It'll be on YouTube.
This is required viewing for them calling this game. It was textbook Gus Johnson.
Steps up in the pocket, throws on the run. Oh, Jake Stoops! Touchdown OU!
However, it was not a textbook game. Neither team
transition. Listen to you.
For a game that ended up 53-45, there really wasn't a whole lot of offense in the game. And at one point, Oklahoma benched starting quarterback Spencer Rattler because he wasn't playing very well. And even so, Rattler ended up 23 for 35, 209, and 3 touchdowns. But the difference for Oklahoma, I think, this week was TJ Pledger ran for 131 yards and a couple TDs, too.
Well, to me, it was no defense. The offense is what it is it is. And Spencer Rattler, look, that little benching, to me, made the difference in the world for Spencer Rattler because he's had his first Big 12 game. It was a loss. Now he's playing in his first OU Texas game. And look, OU Texas is a whole different level. Mm-hmm. Even with the social distancing and the 25% capacity at the Cotton Bowl, it's still an event. And with no state fair either. And you could see it in his eyes. I mean, he's just not that mature yet. I think that benching helped him. It calmed him down. I keep thinking about, on this game, Darrell Royal is up in the heavens right now going, what the hell happened here? And Phil, you need to find the sound rip of Barry Switzer going, we kicked Texas's ass. I mean, that is epitome of Texas Oklahoma right there. Quick thing here, because I saw this morning. Saw a picture of Barry Switzer from the '84 Oklahoma Texas game. If you recall, in that game, there was a controversial interception by Oklahoma that was called an incomplete pass where he actually had both feet in. That's just a little backstory on that game. It was raining in Dallas that day. He had a hat on it, and it was one of the what we'd call a trucker hat. In today's vernacular, it said "Beat Texas" on there, and under the caption was like, "I would run through a wall if Lincoln Riley wore this hat." And they were U Texas game. So,
well, you bring up Lincoln Riley. What does this mean for Tom Herman?
I don't think we see Tom Herman on the sidelines in Austin, Texas, come 2021, folks.
Okay,
so he doesn't get the COVID pass.
I don't not if he was anywhere other than Texas.
The COVID pass.
Yeah.
But for all the talk the last 3 years, the national writers have keep saying Texas is back. Texas is back because they win their first game, and then this happens every year.
That sounds like Tennessee. This is our year. No, I mean, Tom Herman's seat is not only hot, it is in fuego. It is on fire.
Ghost pepper?
Is it 3
Mile
Island?
Yeah, well, what's helping Tom Herman, too, is Jimbo Fisher is having his struggles at Texas A&M. If Texas A&M were 4-0 right now and challenging Alabama, Tom Herman would have been gone before this season. And so, yeah, I think his backside is nuclear right now, but I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger yet. It all depends on those guys.
Well, that reminds me of something that Jeremy Pruitt said when he was hired at Tennessee, when he went in and talked to Coach Phil Fulmer and said that no matter how good your record is, no matter how good a recruiter or a coach you are, your success will be determined by 3 games: Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. I mean, does Tom Herman have the same focus? I mean, he can beat the teams he should beat, right? But when it comes to an Oklahoma game, these are must wins for a Texas coach.
Well, I got to think Oklahoma is the only one on that schedule that is considered the must win. Maybe Texas Tech, because a lot of their rivals are not rivals anymore. A&M is left. That was a measuring stick. You can go way back to Arkansas if you want. That was always a measuring stick. But is it Oklahoma State? I mean, they've been pretty successful against OSU. So what's the measuring stick? It's really just Oklahoma. And yeah, Texas has to win that game because it's all about recruiting. Oklahoma goes in there and steals as many Texans as they want. So that's part of it too. Now I don't follow recruiting as much as most people do, but I don't know what the ratio is with Texans going to Oklahoma to Texas. But if that's shifting, yeah, Tom Herman's probably looking for a new job.
In the meantime, your leaders in the clubhouse right now in the Big 12, Iowa State, after they downed Texas Tech this week, 31-15, 302 yards passing for Brock Purdy, and your co-leader, Kansas State, who knocks off TCU 21-14 in a what I guess you would call a slobber knocker of a game, to quote JR.
There you go.
It's kind of funny with the quarterbacks named Max Duggan, right? I'm thinking Hacksaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the big old 2x4 upside the head. That was that kind of a slugfest game on Saturday.
Of course, Oklahoma State is undefeated in the league.
As both of those teams are as well. They've got a game in hand right now.
So they got Baylor coming up, and that Iowa State, the Oklahoma State game on the 24th is looming large.
Yes.
But OSU's got kind of a tough grind at it if they're going to win the Big 12. And a lot of people are not that high on the Cowboys. After hosting Iowa State, they host Texas the next week, then go to K-State, and then go to Oklahoma. So that's kind of a brutal stretch for the Cowboys if they think they're the team that's going to win the Big 12.
I mean, there are a lot of people that aren't high on the Big 12 as a conference.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah.
For very good reason. Moving on to the ACC and your number one team in the country unanimously, pretty much every poll or expert that you ask, the Clemson Tigers with a huge win, 100 listen to me. They didn't quite score that much.
I wish they had.
Clemson 42, Miami 17 in a game that really wasn't that close. Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, as usual, putting up big numbers for the Tigers, who looked like the Clemson Tigers in that game. We thought Miami might be able to give them a fight. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. Any surprises here, guys?
No, but let me put this question to the floor. A lot of folks are saying that T-Law and Travis Etienne are one of the best, if not the best, quarterback-tailback tandems in the history of college football. Name me another one.
See, I brought this up 3-4 weeks ago. I've been racking my brain to trying to figure out what a great running back quarterback combo was in college football, and I'm having a hard time with it because
Greg Hill and Adrian Peterson.
That's doesn't really get me going. Well, football's changed. I mean, back then, I'll throw out Earl Campbell. I mean, he was a devastating running back for Texas, but
And
he had quarterbacks just didn't throw as often or had put up the gaudy numbers. And most of those quarterbacks played out west. I mean, I was trying to think of when Southern Cal had it going with tailback U. Well, you had quarterbacks like Paul McDonald and Pat Hayden and
Pat Hayden, Charles Davis.
Yeah, no, Charles Davis didn't play with.
Well, who was the tailback at Southern Cal?
It was Anthony Davis. But he was never really that big of a. I mean, he was more of an all-purpose guy. He was a guy that returned a lot of kicks, and that's where he was known for. And he had he had that one great game against Notre Dame, but he didn't put up the gaudy numbers because Archie Griffin was going on then. And by the way, Cornelius Green was a quarterback at Ohio State when Archie Griffin was the running back. He didn't put up gaudy numbers because Woody Hayes wouldn't throw the ball.
Well, it's like, that's the biggest thing that these quarterbacks did. They knew to just turn around and hand the ball off.
Well, right. Different. Yeah, you're talking about a different world and a different time. The game's played a lot different now than it was 40 years ago.
And so you have to have a good running back.
Has been devalued.
Yeah, but you have to have a good running back to open up the quarterback. I mean, as an offensive lineman, when I was playing for Bill Dooley at Wake Forest, if we couldn't get it down on the ground, we were not going to get it down in the air. So we could have had the best quarterback in the country, and if we were not getting it down on the ground, we wouldn't throw the ball. So I mean, that was 1991, right? 92, early 90s, and now. When you have running backs like Etienne, and you look at on the other side, Cameron Harris, who only had 3 yards on 8 carries, by the way. You look at that you have to have that solid running game to open the quarterback play, and then and that's just you have to have it. And Clemson, I can't. I've been trying to do a quick Google search. I can't find anybody better right now than T-Law and Etienne as far as a quarterback running back tandem.
That's right. I mean, it's really kind of goes to show you how college football has evolved into more of the quarterback position, because running backs used to be the marquee players in college football. And how many of those won Heisman trophies in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s? And now the quarterback position has kind of become the marquee position.
To the point where you rarely see a running back now even go in the first round of the NFL draft because they're considered kind of revolvable type of players. Another interesting game and a high scoring game at that. UNC in the top 10, North Carolina, they depleted Virginia Tech team 56-45 in another shootout.
Great effort by the Tar Heels there, guys.
I mean, Mac Brown has said all week, tried to say that the Hokies were the real top 8 team. And, North Carolina had a fight with the Hokies yesterday. I mean, the Hokies have had like 25, 26 players down and have won the last 2 games they played. And, going into this game. And for rightfully so. I mean, Virginia Tech gave up, and granted the score's closer than the game was. Virginia Tech came back a lot in the fourth quarter. But at the same time, actually, the third quarter, they scored 23 points. Yeah. But I think, and, Mac Brown's going to crack probably the top 5 now, maybe 5-6 team in the country. Do I think they're that type of team? No, they haven't played anybody. So they're going to get crushed when the real test comes around.
Guys, I think it's time we wrap up here in the first half of the show because we have hit that magical time known as halftime or what we call a break. For those of you listening at home, a reminder, you are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. You can find us online. Very easy. Just look up at OSG Sports on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We'll be there. You can download the phone app. It's free, costs you absolutely nothing, and it's available on the Google Play Store and in the Apple Store. All the promotional stuff now being out of the way, we will toss it to break. When we come back in the second half of the show, we're going to look ahead a little bit to next week, and I'm going to ask the guys their thoughts about Is there that big of a difference between the top 3 teams and everybody else right now in college football? Because it certainly appears that way. All that and more when we return with the second half of the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The OSG app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Download the OSG app today.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I am the greatest.
We're gonna play football. Yippee!
I guess I need to use the golf music here with that bump shot that Wilkie is giving us.
We have somebody on a canoe right now.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yes, we canoe.
Out there in the distance, I see that.
Yep.
Wow. But this is what happens. This is what happens when Wilkie goes to Hilton Head.
Live, or at least on video, from the beautiful scenic Disney resort at Hilton Head Island, where he is hunkering down this weekend.
Yeah.
The rest of us were kind of in our entertainment rooms at our houses like we normally are. And we are the Online Sports Guys. This is our college football podcast, The Review. You've made it to the second half of the show.
All right, so go ahead and get it out of the way. I know that we ended the last block with the ACC, so go ahead and get it out of the way. The games we didn't talk about. Go ahead, bring it.
Do you really want to talk about that? I want to.
I'm glad that Duke got the win over Syracuse. I really am. I'm glad that Coach Cutt got a win with Chase Bryce at quarterback. I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, although I think the game John's referring to would be the Notre Dame Florida State game, where his Seminoles put up at least a little bit of a fight early before falling down the stretch. 42-26, Notre Dame goes to 3-0 with a win.
Wow. I'm just wondering.
Jordan Travis didn't look bad.
I'm just wondering which NC State team's going to show up from now on. I mean, that team is like this.
The funny thing is that yesterday, I don't know if you saw, the NC State unveiled the turnover bone.
The turnover bone. I saw that.
And it's already got like 4
so
signatures
Dave
on.
Doran.
It was actually pretty awesome to see this big whole Naugahyde bone that these players are playing around with. So, but yeah, the State defense looked actually pretty good yesterday against Virginia.
Well, that has been the strength of that team this year. And they finally showed up against UVA, and maybe the offense is better. I don't know. They're just like this year.
And we won't talk. And then we got Boston College just upended Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think this in the ACC is not going to get you very far, though.
And Georgia Tech beat the wheels off of Louisville.
Yeah, what happened there?
Tex figures things out. That's what I think happened there.
I like what Jeff Collins is doing for Georgia Tech.
I do too.
I think he's building a good program. They're not ready to compete week in and week out on the highest of high levels, but on a given week, they can jump up and bite you in the rear end. Jeff Sims is a fine quarterback.
Yep.
And
I think they're closer than I expected them. And
I agree. And Sims and Malachi Carter have got a great relationship going on right now. I think the Yellow Jackets are, I guess you can say, a bubble team at this point.
I think that's
bubble team as far as a bowl. Well, everybody gets a bowl game this year.
Everybody gets a bowl.
Everybody gets
you get a bowl. You get a bowl. Just as far as a top tier ACC team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Their best days are still ahead of them, but I like the way that things are starting to develop out there in downtown Atlanta. It's a good program, nicely done. Any other games that jumped off the page for you guys this weekend that we haven't hit on yet?
Let's stay away from the Georgia game.
3-1.
What?
Louisiana Tech's now 3-1.
Yep, they got to win.
And I'm trying to think of any others in the other sections of the planet that we usually cover.
I will be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to the Georgia defensive unit. They're the best defense that I've ever seen Georgia have in my modern era. They made Tennessee look stupid in the second half of that game. And I got to give a shout out to what Kirby said to that defense at halftime. Whatever he said, it worked and got into Jarrett Guarantano's head. And Georgia lights out defensively this year.
And Marshall now 3-0 with a win over Western Kentucky.
Let me ask you guys this. I mentioned it as we were wrapping up the first half of the show. Outside of Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, maybe Ohio State once the Big Ten starts playing games in 2 weeks, is there a big line now between those teams and everybody else in college football? Because it's sure the heck's starting to look like it.
I think so.
Yeah, I think there has to be, because you look at those top three. You got Clemson, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia. You've got all those teams up there. Then you've got like the Wisconsins of the world, right? And the Oregons of the world. There's like a Grand Canyon between the top 3, 4, and everybody else. I mean, that's just there's no way around that.
Wilkie, what do you think?
We've seen the body of work of Georgia, Clemson, and Alabama, and it's pretty impressive. And Ohio State's got some catching up to do, because I think they've got a pretty good program there. But the Big Ten is a month behind, and what are the voters going to? I mean, are already the voters thinking about, okay, if Ohio State goes undefeated, do we automatically get them into the Final Four? If I said right now who the Final Four would be, it'd be 2 SEC and 2 ACC teams. It'll be Alabama, Georgia. It'll be Clemson and Notre Dame. Yeah. And right now it's kind of shaping up to be that way. I think Ohio State's got a lot of work to do. Pac-12 has no shot. Even if Oregon puts up gaudy numbers and wins every game by 50 points, I just think people's minds are made up that it's going to be crap football.
The new top 10 that just came out. Go ahead, Phil.
Clemson and Notre Dame play in a couple of weeks, so they're not going to both be undefeated at the end of the season.
I don't think it really matters. I mean, I think it's going to be the eye test and the body of work.
Well,
if Notre Dame comes back and beats them in the championship game, I just think it's more of a seeding issue.
Well, let's put it to the test. The new top 10's out right now. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, 1, 2, 3. Notre Dame 4, North Carolina 5. They did go to the top 5. Ohio State 6, Oklahoma State 7, Cincinnati 8, Penn State 9, and Florida falls 6 to number 10. The high mover of the week was Texas A&M. They jumped 10 spots to number 11.
That's unheard of.
It also proves how dumb ratings are this year.
Well, and the volatility, I think the volatility of a season like this is exposed even more so when you have that much of a reactionary pull when a team goes from 21 to 11. I mean, this is stuff that you would see week 0, week 1 transitioning to week 1 and week 2, not stuff that you would see here now, Wilkie. I mean, I think that you're going to see this kind of volatility continue as we go when it comes to the ratings.
Yeah, I'm sticking with.
You're high with Cincinnati, and and I think you're right. I tend to like Louisiana too, but both those programs and Coastal Carolina, I'm going to throw them in the mix too. But all 3 of those programs, where are the big wins going to come from? I'm looking at Cincinnati's schedule right now. They got home or road games against Tulsa, and we know Tulsa's a little better. They're a team that can bite you in the backside. And then they go to SMU. To me, that SMU test is kind of huge for Cincinnati right now because SMU is probably the best team in Texas right now. And then they host Memphis.
Probably.
So my point is, are those good wins going to resonate to the voters, to the fans? They're just kind of cool wins. They're not playing Ohio State. They're not playing Clemson. So I think it's going to be tough for Cincinnati. And this is the year where a group of 5 team can break through. This is the year. This is their perfect storm. And that's why I kind of lean it toward the Sun Belt. because the American has the reputation. Yes, I got that. But the Sun Belt got it done against the Big 12. They went 3-0 against the Big 12, and I think that's a big help for that league. And now you've got this Saturday, you've got Louisiana and Coastal playing each other, and both have been impressive. J-Dub and I have talked about both programs. We're really impressed with those programs and what they can do. This is an elimination game for the Sun Belt. And I think probably Louisiana probably has the edge over Coastal simply because they had an impressive win over Iowa State. And by the way, Iowa State's undefeated in the Big 12. So that's my scenario.
And I have to go on the record and say that Ohio State at 6 and Penn State at 9 are that high, and they've not played a game this year.
Ohio State doesn't have to play a game and will always be in the top 5 in voting because the polls are so subjective and based on name recognition. It's at the end of the day a popularity contest.
Yep. And Coastal Carolina only got 38 votes to get in the top 25 this year. Week, only 38 votes.
And I'm until you can convince me otherwise, if Ohio State runs the table through their Big Ten schedule, they will be that 4th team.
Ugh.
And I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be. If you can win your Big Ten games, then why not? Just because you started later. And what's the difference? You may or not
have a football program.
What's that?
Does the Big Ten have a football program outside of those couple teams? I mean, that's like if you win.
That's a good one, J-Dub. I like that.
I mean, if you beat everybody down the line, it's like I still say the SEC is a much better football conference.
You can say that about the ACC and Clemson too.
But I just don't think that Ohio State should get the love just because they're Ohio State.
I agree with you, J-Dub. And I look at
football now.
Look, Ohio State opens hosting Nebraska, then they go to Penn State. Okay, if they come 2-0 in that stretch, I think they deserve a top 4 billing. But, I'm looking, they always choke in East Lansing against Michigan State, and they've got that coming up before Michigan. So, and even if Michigan is a 7-5 type team this year or 6-6, it's Ohio State, Michigan. They're going to be up for that. So my thing is the Final Four committee wants Notre Dame in because they're playing in a conference for the first time. And if they do well in the ACC, if they beat Clemson once, whether it's in the ACC championship game or in the regular season, it doesn't solidify that spot, but it's going to make it real tough for the voters not to keep Notre Dame in that spot because I think they want the Fighting Irish in there and rewarding them for going into a conference. Phil, you've said that this is how college football works. College football rewards those teams that are gold standard type programs.
Yep.
We know that. And Notre Dame is, and pardon the pun with the golden helmets, they are the
gold standard.
They are the gold standard. They've been that way since the 1910s.
The Charlotte 49ers, who have the hashtag gold standard, would disagree with you on that one.
Oh,
yeah, I think that's a safe assumption. 10 to 15 years ago, I think that's a safe assumption. I don't know that Notre Dame, because of their lack of success over the last few years, I don't know that they are as the same team that they were a couple of years ago.
Just remember, a lot of it goes into this is television ratings.
Yep.
And Notre Dame,
ding, ding, ding.
Exactly. When they see those golden helmets, it's money in the bank for ESPN and for the ratings, and that's another factor you got to put in here. And I don't, Ohio State, I don't know if they have the same ratings pool or will make you stop and watch like Notre Dame will.
The jury's still out on Justin
Fields,
Fields
in
anyway.
A truncated schedule and a truncated season.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, we'll move on here to the news, notes, nuggets, and things on said section of the show. This is the part where we talk about first of all, I guess, the couple of games that got postponed this weekend due to COVID outbreaks on particular campuses. And shout out and best wishes to legendary Florida State coach Bobby Bowden, who at the age of 90 is currently in his own battle with COVID. We wish the Bowdens nothing but the best of luck because Bobby, as most of you who have followed the game for years know, is one of the true legends of college football and just generally kind of a good dude.
Miss Ann won't allow anything bad to happen to Bobby, so I think we're okay.
It'll take more than a virus to get rid of Bobby Bowden.
And a
Love you, coach.
A current coach currently battling the COVID as well, Les Miles at Kansas.
That's what happens when you chew grass.
Yeah, there's the line I was waiting for.
I chewed the wrong one, yeah.
Les isn't quite that bad off from what I understand, but he is trying to deal with it and get through the quarantine part of things.
Yeah, we did get an email through the University of Kansas system about it, and last we heard, he's doing fine. He's hanging in there.
Yeah, I suspect that will be the case. And now we move on, a little bit of a tease ahead to the X later in the week. That would be our college football midweek show with Brother Wilkie and company. And the game of the week, of the month, of the year, of the century, primetime college football on CBS Saturday night. Georgia goes to Tuscaloosa and plays the Alabama Crimson Tide. We have one of these games, at least one of these games every year, guys.
Game of the century of the week.
Yep.
And in the COVID era.
Is this going to be the endless hype train for the next 5 days?
Oh, no, of course not.
And
I think Louisiana, Coastal Carolina is going to get more play than this game.
I mean, Wednesday, seriously.
Especially in your household, Phil.
No kidding. I mean, think Wednesday night in Phil's household, Coastal at Louisiana, number 21 ranked Louisiana. And I think it's going to be an absolute blast to see those two teams go at it midweek. I really do.
I would have liked to see them play Coastal just because I like the aquamarine colored turf.
I think the only thing that's going to come out of Alabama, Georgia is that Kirby Smart might be the first assistant to beat the master. I think that there's a big chance that if – now, granted, Kirby Smart's still going to Kirby Smart. I mean, he had a couple of really bad fourth down calls against Tennessee in that first half. So he's going to make his coaching errors that he does every week.
I'm pretty sure there's something in the water in the state of Georgia that causes stuff like that.
It went all the way back to Mark Richt and before that. So, yeah, absolutely. But I think I'm going to watch that game only in bits and pieces because I hate Georgia and I hate Alabama. So it's like I don't want to watch either one of them. I want them both to lose. But, yeah, I will be watching every second of the Louisiana Coastal Carolina game, every second of it.
I'll be watching that game, too, on Wednesday night. A couple observations about Alabama, Georgia. First of all, if you're on the defensive side of the ball for Alabama, you've got a week of hell coming because after what you did at your performance against Ole Miss, I mean, you can't do that against Georgia, even if Stetson Bennett is the quarterback. He can still beat you pretty good, as Matt Corral did. So that's going to be a rough week for those guys. So I expect a much better defensive effort from Alabama against Georgia, and I'm sure the tape has been broken down, and we'll see how that goes. The other thing is, remember when they played in the national championship game in 2018 in Atlanta, and I think I dubbed it, and everybody else dubbed it SEC Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We're going to get the sequel, because think about what this year college football has been like. We didn't know if we're going to have a season. Now we've got a season. It's gone a little better than we expected. And now we've got the two best teams, outside of Clemson. You have to put Clemson in that. But you've got the two best teams meeting each other in a regular season game with a lot on the line. And I think we're getting the sequel version of SEC Nirvana. It's going to be the crowd is going to be subdued, I guess, as far as numbers. Maybe not. We don't know.
It'll be the MTV Unplugged performance.
Yeah,
of SEC Nirvana.
So again, I'm looking forward to this game because this is kind of what we need now. We need something like this after everybody's gone through since February. This is kind of a Nirvana moment, especially if you're born and raised in the Southern football culture like the four of us have been.
I think it's going to come down to the play of 8 players. 8 players. For Alabama, you got Mac Jones, you got Najee Harris, you got Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. For Georgia, you got the same ones. You've got Stetson Bennett, you got Zamir White, you got Kearis Jackson and George Pickens. So how those 4 players play, and the offensive and defensive lines are going to beat the crap out of each other all game long. But how the position players I think ultimately it's going to come down to Najee Harris and Zamir White. Which one of them has the better game? Because I'm not sure that Mac Jones or Stetson Bennett can overcome a huge game from the opposition's running back.
And I'm hoping it's like a 1970s, early 80s type game. Really, Frank Broyles and Keith Jackson should be calling this game. I mean, if they could come down from the heavens and call one game, this would be it.
Oh, Nelly.
Oh, Nelly, brother Wilkerson, we got us a ball game.
You know, I just hope it's a 24-21 type game where somebody, you know, well, I guess with the targeting rule, you can't you can't really snap someone's head back. But you know, I just hope we have a few of those type of hits, and it's going to be physical. There's going to be grass hanging out of their pants. That's the kind of game I'm hoping we get. Rather than these Madden type scores.
Now, as an old offensive lineman, I love these slobber knockers, these games of attrition where they're like 10-7, and you have like 3-and-out punts, and you're working on the strategies where the chess match between when do you put in the nickel package and the dime package, when do you put 8 in the box and and rush, and if you have in like these 1,000-point games. Yeah, you have these Madden type games. It takes the strategy out of it, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you, J-Dub. I'm hoping it's the type of game, the college football game we were all used to when we were growing up.
Guys, what do you say we wrap up the show here? We've kind of run out of time. We'll get to talk about this game probably a lot more next week. I'm sure coming up in the X on Wednesday, we'll get to talk. You guys will get to talk a lot about what's coming up. And we'll put a little bow on this show and say goodbye. I can't talk all of a sudden because I'm getting tired. That means it's time for us to wrap up. So for Jay Wilkerson 16, OSG Nelson, OSG J-Dub, and myself, OSG Phil, we are the Online Sports Guys. You have been listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. Have a great week, everybody.
The Online Sports Guys would love to hear from you. Go to our Twitter page at OSG Sports for a comment, rant, or just whatever's on your mind about college football.